dccnet.com. Is that right, Jennifer?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're now live.
Thank you. All right. I would like to call to order the regular council meeting of the District of Seashell. It is 7:01 p.m. on Wednesday, May 19th. And we are coming to you from the traditional territory of the Seashell Nation. We have an agenda in front of us. I'd like to add one additional item, but I don't see the I want to add something, but I don't see the applicant or the person here yet. This would be the BC Achievement Community Awards 2021. I'd like to add that as 3.2. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? And then, are there any declarations of conflict this evening? I think Councillor Lamb is looking to recuse himself for 8.2. All right. And on one of the items I'll bring up during my council reports, Councillor Toth will be recusing himself. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? All right, then look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So we have a delegation with us this evening. We have Bob Brash, Executive Director from the Truck Loggers Association. Welcome, Bob.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for finding time to listen to our little spiel today. I know you're busy folks like everybody these days, so I'll get into it, I guess, and hopefully I hit all the right buttons for sharing screen this time.
Okay, we don't see anything yet, so.
No, I'm. There we go. Let me see one more button. How's that looking? Working?
We can see all of the slides. So I think there's one.
All
other.
right. Oh, right. Yeah, this one more. There it is. Should be working now.
That's perfect. Thank you.
So again, thank you for the opportunity to present to you folks today. I'll go through the first couple of slides a little quickly because the meat of it's towards the end here. But for those of you who don't know much about us, we've been around for a long time, 78 years. Actually, last year was the first time we had to sort of cancel our January convention for obvious reasons. We've got about 500 members across BC, including about 20 community members, and 20 employees that are members that are out of Seashell. Of course, there's many more people than that. They're involved in the forest industry, but that's our direct membership. We've been a pretty strong voice over the years, working with the provincial government for policies and regulations that affect the forest sector and work towards improving the prosperity of the industry. We're obviously concerned about the long-term sustainability of the folks that work in forestry, and we're quite involved in forestry education and scholarships. We work with the provincial government, obviously. They own 97% of the land base out there at this time. Major licensees, labor, the value-added sector, BC First Nations Forest Council. Safety is a big part of our job, but we work with those associations pretty heavily, and other forest-related associations. So what we sort of see as some of the challenges, and we'll loop back to this of where maybe we can cooperate in a sec here, but we do see some challenges. I'm sure most of you are aware of these. You just have to read the newspapers and stuff. We're concerned about the overall investment climate in the forest sector in BC. Although right now, as you might have noticed, if you go to Home Depot or any other hardware store or lumber yard, lumber prices are at record highs. Some relief is happening as we speak. There's a slight downward trend in the futures and stuff, but it's envisioned that lumber prices will stay pretty strong over the next couple of years, which is good for the industry. And it's good for us because we get to work. Having said that, there's a lot of capital that is not being employed in British Columbia. It's being invested in other parts of the world and Canada, and we'd like to see some of that investment dollars come back to British Columbia, obviously. And we know the government shares those agendas. We have a concern about the long-term certainty of the working forest in British Columbia, and I'll talk about old growth a bit, but the working forest is comprised of the second growth, new growth, old growth. We're concerned about that, maintaining that base to maintain the industry, in short. We're concerned about the cost structure in BC for the forest industry and the complexity and the regulations that we deal with. We are not competitive with most of the globe in terms of our forest products, and we've got some real strong competitors out there that do a better job at that than we do. We're concerned about consistent and reliable information about the forest sector. Talk about that in a second here. And what we're most concerned about in terms of a challenge is coming to some sort of collective vision for where this forest sector should move ahead in the future. Obviously, these days, there's a few headlines out there about old growth harvesting. And there's obviously a flood of data out there and opinions, and we don't have time to sort of get into all those facts and figures these days or today. We're concerned about the lack of constructive dialogue that's happening out there, polarized debates, basically who's talking to who these days. And that dynamic has to change somehow, and that it will be a challenge. We as an organization believe that harvesting is not always a yes or no proposition. Our membership and the forest sector has been pretty good over the decades at adapting to new and changing public expectations, and we're quite confident in our abilities to keep changing as we increase the knowledge of what we have out there for our forest sector. The economic contributions of the forest industry remain very significant. Probably every truck that you see go down the road represents $15,000 to $25,000 in GDP contribution to the province. So that adds up. I mean, it's $12 billion, I think, is what the industry contributes to our economy in British Columbia. So as I said before, we are quite concerned about a broader vision for BC's working forest and the forest sector. We support change, but obviously we have some bias that we think the changes should be. And in a very simplistic way, we do support a diversity of tenures, increased diversity of tenures, increased diversity in the flow of logs and lumber, because that will help the investment climate. And there'll be a number of other things, but those are some of the key things that we would like to see change. And I guess this is the whole core of the conversation with you folks, is that we hopefully will find some opportunities for collaboration and cooperation with you. We have some pretty good information in case you ever need it about the forest sector contributions, payrolls, and employees. We can assist in public education and information. We can assist in coordination of any forest policy development that we all agree upon. Advocacy is an essential sort of part of our role as an organization, and we work with that with both federal and provincial governments. And I guess as a bit of a sideline, the Premier has been making it pretty clear that the government intends to come out imminently with something called an intentions document. And what we believe that's going to talk about is the government's vision, I guess, for how they're going to restructure the industry and redistribute tenures. To what extent, none of us are aware of how far they are intending on going. But we believe that there'll be obviously some sort of degree of consultation involved in whatever they're going to do. And we expect to participate in that consultation. But because of our sort of strong community ties, that's where our members come from. We want to work with the communities also to make sure that sort of we can get at least on some same pages in terms of where the government should be considering, the changes to forest policy moving ahead. And that all relates to, at the end of the day, a collective vision for improving the prosperity of the forest industry and maintaining healthy resource communities. The last slide, I won't spend too much time, but we have lots of means to get the word out. We put out magazines. We're heavily involved in social media and e-newsletters to our members. And of course, we hope this January to have the annual convention again. Hopefully the timing will be okay after we've all had our shots. So that would be an entertaining sort of convention for sure. So I probably will leave it at that for now. If you have some questions, that would be great. I'd do my best to sort of answer them.
Thank you. All right, so if you want to stop sharing your screen,
I'm going
get
to do
everybody
that right
back on
now.
here.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, council, any questions or comments? I have one question around some of the information you presented. You said that you're available for input, support, etc. Are you in communication with the Sunshine Coast Community Forest? Because as you probably know, we're the shareholder of that group.
Yeah, no, and again, that relates to our comments that our members work actively, and I'm not totally sure if our members are actively involved in your community forest, but we are involved in lots of community forests throughout the province, and we are quite in support of that. And in fact, when I said about diversity of tenures, we actually believe that we should increase the diversity of tenures that go to communities and First Nations for lots of reasons, but mainly because we think diversity in the forest sector is important, and we think it's important in terms of attracting investment. And lastly, hoping to sort of improve the social license that this industry has right now with the public, and that obviously is a bit strained right now.
I would suggest that you would could potentially reach out to Warren Hansen. Dave Lasser was our registered forester, and he retired at the end of December, and Warren Hansen has taken over. And you may know him if you've been around for a while. He's come on board as the forester, and we have a draft operating plan that has just been put out to the community, open for input until June 15th.
Okay,
so,
good.
We would welcome input.
Okay, no, I'll check with Warren. And by the way, I knew Mr. Lasser quite well. We worked a couple times together over my career. So
right, all right. So, council, any other questions? All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to speak with us, and we look forward to working with you.
I appreciate again the opportunity today, and yes, I look forward to future conversations. Thank you again,
much.
Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 3.2, and we have a guest with us tonight. We have Linda Williams here from the Coast Cultural Alliance. I reached out to Linda because I got notified by the province that Linda received an award. So each year, the province of British Columbia they have the BC Achievement Foundation, and they look at giving out community awards. And Linda's name was put forward, and she was actually honored with one of the 25 awards that were given out in the province. So I'm going to read what they sent us about Linda. I mean, I think a lot of us know what she does, but I'll read what it says. It says, as chair of the Coast Cultural Alliance, Linda has shaped the arts community on the Sunshine Coast. Since 1999, Linda has coordinated the Sunshine Coast Purple Banner Tour Guide, and starting in 2010, the annual Sunshine Coast Arts Crawl, an event that has grown to featuring over 350 local artists and contributed to the economic and cultural vitality of the Sunshine Coast. She is instrumental in supporting local musicians and helped to establish a youth endowment with the Sunshine Coast Community Foundation to provide grants to young musicians. Her initiatives have stood the test of time and are now sustainably woven into the rhythms of her community. Linda is chair of the Sunshine Coast Jazz and Entertainment Society and festival director for the Gibson's Landing Jazz Festival. Known as a person who brings people and ideas together, Linda leads and performs in the Naughty Daughters Marimba Band and is the musical director with the Sokoli Balkan Singers, so I said right? And all these initiatives have been hit hard by the pandemic, and Linda remains a strong advocate as she navigates the current challenges to bring arts and culture to the Sunshine Coast in new and imaginative ways. So on behalf of council, I wanted to have you come here, present you to the community. For those who don't know you, I mean, lots of people know you because you're in everything, but we wanted to congratulate you on being put forward, nominated, and also for winning this community award. You're a pleasure to have in our community, and we love your support.
Thank you so much, Darnelda. I'm not always great at getting awards or accepting awards, but reading what the initiative of the award is, it really does, I advocate for other people to step up and volunteer and let people know how many volunteers there are in the community. Some of us are leading it, but there are so many others that are working their way through it all too, just quietly in the background. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming and joining us and receiving our acknowledgement here in the community.
I was a little late because I'm working on the new Purple Banner Guide.
All right. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. So we will move on to our proclamations. Number 4.1, Anti-Racism Awareness Week. So Anti-Racism Awareness Week, May 23rd to 29th, 2021. Whereas British Columbia is a culturally diverse province comprised of many peoples and communities, and whereas anti-racism education helps people learn how to practice identifying, challenging, preventing, eliminating, and changing the values, structures, policies, programs, practices, and behaviors that perpetuate racism and hate. And whereas history has shown that racism and discrimination are heightened in times of crisis, and the global spread of coronavirus has triggered targeted and intensifying xenophobia and anti-Asian racism in cities across the world. And whereas Anti-Racism Awareness Week is an opportunity to focus on the need for governments, organizations, and individuals in British Columbia to work together to educate and support anti-racism education in communities across the province. And whereas the District of Seashell strives to be a caring, inclusive, vibrant, safe, livable, and just community through embracing diversity, celebrating culture and creativity, fostering belonging and participation. And whereas everyone deserves safe public spaces without the fear of discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. Now, therefore, I, Darnell de Seegers, on behalf of the District of Seashell Council, do hereby proclaim that May 23rd to 29th, 2021 shall be known as Anti-Racism Awareness Week in the District of Seashell. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you for proclaiming this, Mayor Seegers. I was glad to see it on the agenda when I checked it out on the weekend. One thing that this proclamation does miss is that anti-racism is the act of actively combating racism. So it's not just simply not being racist. It's looking for racist systems, calling out racism when you see it. So I want to do a little bit of that right now because I think there is racism in our community. When I looked across to this council table, all of us appear to be, we all present as white. So we may not feel that racism day to day like other people in this community. What we might feel is coastism. The idea that you need to live on a coast for a certain amount of time. That hurts. That's nothing in compared to racism based on your color of skin, based on any other of your physical characteristics. We are all the same people. I've seen so many racist acts on the Sunshine Coast, from racist graffiti to bullying based on racism. There's systemic racism on the Sunshine Coast too. Racist land covenants, which prevent non-whites from owning land. There's structural racism against the First Nations and disrespecting some of our original inhabitants of the Sunshine Coast. So I hope everyone on this call can try and adopt that anti-racism approach and really call it out when you see it. It's not just enough to not be racist.
I agree. And I mean, I think we have an election coming up in a little over a year. I think I'd like to see others in the community of other ethnicities be having a presence on our council. They're here. I'd like to see them have a voice as well at this table. So thank you for that. All right, we have another proclamation. This is Local Government Awareness Week, May 16th to 22nd, 2021, and Asset Management Awareness Day, May 19th, 2021. So whereas local governments have a direct impact on the day-to-day lives of people in communities, by providing good governance, public services, and stewardship of public assets, and by fostering economic, social, and environmental well-being. And whereas local governments strive to deliver services sustainably, ensuring that current community service needs and how those services are delivered do not compromise the ability of future generations to meet their own needs through sound asset management practices. And whereas local governments have an important role in serving, supporting, and uniting people, especially during extraordinary and difficult times, and local governments and the government of British Columbia work together in times of crisis to keep communities healthy and safe, and to support economic recovery, deliver services, and provide leadership and guidance. And whereas Local Government Awareness Week is an opportunity to increase public awareness and understanding of local government roles and responsibilities, and local government awareness is sponsored and supported collaboratively by the Union of BC, British Columbia municipalities, local government partner agencies, and the Government of British Columbia. Now, therefore, I, Darnell de Seegers, on behalf of the District of Seashell Council, do hereby proclaim that the week of May 16th to 22nd, 2021, shall be known as Local Government Awareness Week, and May 19th, 2021, which is today, shall be known as Asset Management Awareness Day in the District of Seashell. So I think on behalf of council, I'd like to acknowledge our staff and what they do for our community day in and day out. They're not always seen to most of the people in the community. There are some, like our Parks and Public Works people, who are seen out there, but some of the others who are behind the scenes, working all the time, moving things forward, I think they do deserve our recognition. So thank you to staff. All right. So we will move on to item 5.1. This is adoption of the minutes of council meetings. So this is the minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meetings of meeting of May 5th. And Councillor Toth, you indicated there was amendment to be made.
Yeah, on page 30, the recommendation right in the middle of the page, or the resolution right in the middle of the page, says until further information can be provided. And I seem to recall the conversation was very specifically around impacts to other jurisdictions. So I just wanted to know if, I haven't gone back and reviewed the recording yet, but I feel like we were more specific than less specific with that. So I'm just wondering if it should read until impacts to other jurisdictions can be assessed instead.
Okay, you'd like to make that amendment? Is there a seconder for the amendment? I'm okay with the wording of that. I'll second that. That's fine. So I'm looking to Ms. Frank. So if we amend this recommendation as put forward in here, how do we move forward on this then? We vote on this and then vote on the minutes as amended?
Your worship, if it's actually not, the resolution's been carried.
Yes.
So if all of council agrees that it could be looked at more as a correction. If all of council agrees that what we have recorded is not correct, then it's just a matter of making that correction. And then when you adopt the minutes, they will be adopted as corrected.
Okay.
Because two different things. If you're actually, the other way is if you're thinking to, the other way is that you want to bring forward an already voted on motion for reconsideration. But I'm hearing that what you are saying is it needs to be corrected. So it wouldn't actually be an amendment, just a correction, and we will correct the minutes as directed.
Thank you, Councillor Todd.
Like I said, I only spotted it about 10 minutes to meeting time, so I didn't have a chance to review the recording, but I seem to recall I voted against this motion in the first place. So it's up to the rest of council, I guess, if we want to correct it, or yes, correct it.
Okay. Council, are you okay with it as it is, or would you like to have it corrected? Council McLean.
Yeah, I'm just going off memory. I seem to recall it provided is a more accurate term, and I'm going to trust that it was recorded correctly.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, so we will go with the minutes as presented. I'd look for a motion for adoption. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. 5.2, this is on page 31. This is the minutes of the 2:30 special council meeting of May 12th, 2021 for adoption. And this is the information on our financial plan, our sewer usage fees, etc. Someone like to move adoption? Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. 5.3, this is the district seashell minutes of regular council meeting of Wednesday, May 12th. And this was the short meeting going into a closed meeting. Look for a motion to adopt as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 7.1. This is the Advisory Planning Commission meeting minutes of May 4th for receipt. I look for a motion to receive. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Item 7.2, Councillor Toth.
Thank you. On page 41, again, just about right in the middle of the page, there was the comment about possibly using the SCRD test well. And it says that using a groundwater well option could add a significant cost for insulation. And I think the correct thing there was infrastructure. So just a small correction.
Okay. Any other corrections? All right, so I look for a motion to receive and endorse as corrected or as amended. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And item 7.3. This is the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Wednesday, May 12th, again for receipt and endorsement. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to, we have to get to the next item. Item 8.1A. This is the Seashell Sewage Facilities Commission Amendment Bylaw number 225-5, 2021. And I'd look for a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And Ms. Frank.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district received a letter from the Seashell Indian Government District confirming their council's appointments of representatives to vote at the Seashell Sewage Facilities Commission. The current commission bylaw prescribes that 2 voting members of the SIG Council must be appointed to the commission annually by the SIGD Council. In this case, one of their council's appointees is not a voting member of their council. So it's therefore necessary to make a minor amendment to the commission bylaw to allow for this membership composition. So the bylaw is in front of council for consideration of first, second, and third reading. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? All right, there are 2 recommendations on page 50. What would you like to do? Councillor Toth.
I will move recommendation 2 that Seashell Indian Government District Councillor Corey August and Seashell Indian Government District Manager Peter Jamaev be appointed to the Seashell Sewage Facilities Commission, and recommendation 3 that Seashell Sewage Facilities Commission Amendment Bylaw number 225-5, 2021 be read a first, second, and third time.
All right, is there a seconder for that recommendation? Or those recommendations? Seconded. All right, all those in favor? Thank you. So move on to the actual bylaw, 8.1B. This is on page 53. District of Seashell Sewage Facilities Commission Amendment Bylaw number 225-5, 2021, being a bylaw to amend Sewage Facilities Commission Bylaw number 225, 1994 to change membership composition. I'd look for someone to move first reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And second reading, Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Frank. Moving on to item 8.2A, and I believe Councillor Lamb will be recusing himself from this. Thank you. So we'll wait till, there he's gone. Perfect. So this is a rezoning application for 1862 Kosian Place for Psychoen Investments, zoning amendment bylaw of 25-311-2021. Motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Mr. Kobowitz.
Thank you. I'll just don't have a presentation for this as it was previously considered by council, but I'll briefly introduce the application. It's for a rezoning, zoning amendment to allow cannabis production in an existing industrial building. And this is part of the legalization process of a previous operation. And essentially it's to reduce the minimum parcel size that the current zoning bylaw requires for industrial cannabis production from 3,000 square meters to 2,000 square meters. Previously, this was considered by council in February, after where it was given first reading and subsequently sent to referral to agencies and the Advisory Planning Commission. No significant remarks have come back that staff is currently concerned with. We are seeking confirmation that the existing sewerage system is adequate for the proposed use, and we'll have a forthcoming, we're requesting that a report be provided by a registered professional to confirm that. And we're recommending second reading and subsequent public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? All right, so there are two recommendations on page 54. Councillor Todd.
Or you're just a little too quick for me. I did actually
Okay.
have one question. So
Okay, sorry.
we've done the referral process. If we pass a resolution here to send it to public hearing, the notification range is 100 meters. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
as well as the newspaper advertisements that are required as well.
Okay, so 100 meters, I assume, reaches at least the residential properties on the south side of Parkway Drive.
Hang on.
I know there's not a lot of properties around there, but there is at least that one row of residential there. So
It does. It's about 100 meters to the cul-de-sac
okay,
on
thank you.
Hall Road.
All right, any other questions then before I jump forward to the recommendations? All right, would someone like to move the recommendations on page 54? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'll move recommendation 2 that council gives second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 25-311-2021, 1862 Khoisan Place as amended. And recommendation 3 that council authorize staff to schedule a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 25-311-2021, 1872 Khoisan Place.
There's seconder for the recommendation. Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. And then we'll move to the actual zoning amendment bylaw. This is on page 58. Item 8.2B, District of Seashell bylaw number 25-311, 2021, 1862 Kosian Place, being a bylaw to amend District of Seashell zoning bylaw number 25, 1987. And I look for someone to move second reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kobowitz. And we will bring back Councillor Lamb. Welcome back. Moving on, item 8.3A, building amendment bylaw number 409-8, 2021. Motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Mr. Nihas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. All I can add to the report is that the draft bylaw has been circulated with our neighbors, the Sunshine Coast Regional District and the town of Gibsons. The Sunshine Coast Regional District did respond favorably to it. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions or comments before we move forward? Councilor McLean.
Yeah, just clarifying that circulation to the town of Gibsons and the SRD. Was there a request for feedback there, or just was it more for information?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it was just to circulate to make them aware that we were amending our bylaw, and of course they could respond to it if they wished.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, there is a recommendation on page 59. Councillor Toth.
I will move recommendation 2 that council adopt building amendment bylaw number 409-8, 2021.
And is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to the actual, now I have to find the page for this one because this is long. All right, starts on page 61, item 8.3B, District of Seashell Building Amendment number 409-8, 2021, being a bylaw to amend District of Seashell Building Bylaw number 409, 2003. And I'd look for a motion for adoption. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And I want to commend Mr. Nivas for all the work he did on this. Thank you for bringing us into the 21st century on this one. All right, moving on. No new business. We're moving on to item 10, 10.1. This is development variance permit for 2224 Field Road, Cloutier, and a motion to receive the report. Moved to seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Mr. Korbowitz, over to you.
Thank you. I have a brief presentation to share.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a development variance permit application for 2224 Field Road. It's located north of Field Road, really, but on the Forest Service Road beyond the Seashell Airport. It is currently zoned RR2, Rural Zone, which is our zone that applies to all ALR lands within the District of Seashell. And currently, cannabis production and cultivation is a permitted use on the property, both under the zoning bylaw as well as the Agricultural Land Commission use regulations. The proposal is to relax the required setbacks for a building from 100 meters to 56 meters at the closest point and 64 meters at the other corner of the building. And this is to facilitate the use of an existing building for cannabis production. There's also a variance request to reduce the extent of the required landscape buffer. The current zoning bylaw requires landscape buffer around the perimeter of the property. And due to the location of the property, the size, and the staff and the applicant would feel it's more appropriate to focus the landscaping in the area of where the building is actually located, adjacent to the road, where the building could be viewed by the public using Field Road, especially on their way to the Dakota Ridge winter recreation area. This is a site photo that was taken that shows the building. A substantial amount of internal reconfiguration in the building is proposed along with this use to facilitate the use with the splitting. I believe currently it's a single-story building, but it would be split for a lower floor and an upper floor. So referrals were sent out. The APC reviewed the application and generally supported the application, subject to some improved landscaping plan that incorporated a broader variety of plants and did more to mitigate the appearance of the building from the road. Staff have assessed the application, and as it facilitates a permitted use under the ALC regulations, this variance is appropriate to enable the use of the existing building rather than encourage the construction of new buildings. The intent of the setbacks is certainly maintained. The landscaping that's being required will improve the appearance of the property. And public notifications were also sent to surrounding property owners with no issues being raised. Staff currently don't anticipate any impacts on neighboring or adjacent lands. So recommendation now is to issue development variance permit and subject to the submission of a revised landscape plan that's suitable to meet the needs that are being recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Toth?
Hello.
Sorry, Councillor Toth was up first and then Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. I'm actually going to defer to next person on the list. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't skip questions. I need to find my question in my agenda.
Okay, okay, perfect. Councillor Lamb, over to you.
Yeah, okay. First off, it would have been nice to have that picture that you had there that showed the building. It would have been nice to have that in our agenda. But anyways, I was up there today, and if the pictures that we have in our agenda, if you go to page 83, and so the top part, like this picture is a really old picture, but if you follow the forestry access road where it goes around left, there's a berm of blackberries, salmon berries, you name it, all the natural. It's not natural because blackberries aren't natural to our community, but the berm is 20 or 30 feet wide. It's probably 15 feet high. From there, you cannot even see that building. And when you come down, there's the gate where the intersection of the roads meet, and then there's a green space, and then you come down, and then the picture that you have that you showed us today, just to the right of that, there's a cedar hedge that's about 8 feet tall. The cedars haven't filled in yet, but they're big and they're mature cedars and they will fill in. I for myself, I believe that this has been a waste of time, where we should have, somehow we should have been able to short circuit this and come back. Somehow staff should have been able to come to council and say, here's what we're looking at. This building in 2 or 3 years will not be seen by the natural fauna that's growing there. And we should have this is a 30-acre parcel on the very outskirts of Seashell. It's 185 feet from one road, 211 feet from the other road. Natural, like I say, natural fauna all around it. The fellow that owns the property has, it's not suited for agriculture anymore because they've covered all the agricultural land with blast rock. But this is the same as putting a sidewalk on Marine Way, where we said the sidewalk goes nowhere. Why would we put the sidewalk in? So we said, no, we're not going to put the sidewalk in. This is out in the bush. This, to me, we're going, staff has buried, there's so much work for staff, and the amount of time that was, to me, was wasted on this application. It's very, it's very disappointing to me. And once again, I compliment staff on the fact that I have a project going through, and they've been very thorough with me and done a great job for my project. But this is out in the bush. It should, somehow there has to be a short circuit for this, because we would have saved staff a whole bunch of time and energy, my opinion. So that's just my comments. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we should be doing any landscaping around this. And the other thing is, what happens with this is, you know, we're looking at costs for being in business, and it doesn't matter if cost for being in business or cost for building a house. For them to do this is $30,000 or $40,000. If it was a rental, it would move the rent up, you know, $1 or $2 a square foot. And so, you know, we have to be cognizant of that. You know, we have to, you know, we just have to be aware of when we put $40,000 or $40,000 additional costs on something, it comes back to the end user. Whether you're buying a house or buying a property or renting a property. I've had enough to say for right now. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Lamb, I think what you're addressing is policy that we as council put in place.
Yeah.
So our policies, our bylaws say that when we are dealing with this type of building, they have to have the landscaping around the perimeter of the lot. So staff actually worked with the proponent to come up with an alternative inside of the policies that we put in place. So yes, that's why the variance is coming to us, to allow us to work with the proponent and let him move forward in the most reasonably cost effective way.
Right.
So I understand what you're saying, and this is what we put in place. The staff have to work inside of. So maybe what we need to do is look at the policy that we have, so that, you know, we can see, is this going to be an issue going forward with other properties that may come to us, right? So maybe that's something that we should go back and look at.
That, you know, I totally agree that, and this is a one-off. You know, it's you're on the very perimeter of the district of Seashell. But once again, you know, staff is looking at, you know,
okay, but hold on. Staff is only looking at it inside of the guidance we gave them.
I know, but staff needs to have a short circuit. They need to have some way where they can come back to council and say, look, here's the proposed, it's something that shortens it up to.
But they can't do that. We can only give them that permission. So
Give them permission.
Okay, so what you're saying is we need to go back and look at that policy to see if, when we put it up, because honestly, when we put that policy together, we didn't have any examples coming to us. Now we're starting to see examples coming.
Sure.
So maybe it's an opportunity for us to go back and look at the policy that we put in place. If there are other other types of guidance we want to give to staff, we need to build that in there so they don't have to come to us for this. At this point, we don't have to give them any option.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can take that away and, you know, see what else we have to do to address that. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. I just find it, you know, anyways, I've said enough, and I 100% agree with what's going on. I just, anyway, I'm good.
All right, thank you. Now, Councillor Toth, did you find your question?
I did find my question.
Okay.
But I'm going to tag on to Councillor Lamb's comments first. You know, this is a one-off. This is certainly not the property that was in mind when the proposal, the development, you know, proposal was originally brought forward, looking at greenery, borders, and all those things. You know, you look at the map on page 83, and you've got Hudson Creek and you've got the riparian area there. That basically is one side already. You know, so could the applicant have gotten away with doing 2 or 2.5 sides? Perhaps. But ultimately, staff are bringing forward this proposal that's looking at just around the building. I think it's going to be the nicest looking building in that entire area once it's got the cedar trees around it. But I'm fine with the reduced area. You know, it is something improved. Cannabis certainly doesn't lack for affordability. Is not a huge issue in the cannabis industry. That's all I'm going to say on that. The question that I have on page 84 in the servicing requirements section, It mentions that bylaw 430 may require some improvements. This would be assessed at the building permit stage. And I'm just looking for some clarification on what we're looking at improving based on this comment.
Sure, I can attempt to give you some clarification on that. Essentially, bylaw 430 does require works and services to be provided at the time of building permit for industrial and commercial uses. That generally includes agricultural commercial uses. Although bylaw 430 does have provisions that exempt farm uses from onerous requirements as far as frontage goes. So essentially the intent is recognizing that if a farm was to construct a barn building, that can be quite expensive, and it was on a gravel road, that we would not be requiring that road to be paved, like for example in this location. So that being said, it will be at the building permit stage, and when a more detailed review is done, that would look at the implications for servicing requirements.
Just a quick follow-up to that then.
Mhm.
So that being assessed at the building permit stage, is any waivers around frontage improvements, things like that, going to be handled at the staff level, or are we going to see a further report coming to council?
That's something I'd have to take back and consider to give you an answer on that, depending on the scope of the building permit application and the alterations that's linked to the value of construction and that type of thing. So it's certainly possible that an additional report would be forthcoming to council should it require council decision.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, Mr. Koberwitz, could you pull up the presentation again? And let's just take a quick look at the slide that Councillor Lamb mentioned, and then a site plan next for my question, once you have it ready.
Sure.
Okay, so we see some of the trees to the right and the brambles to the left that Councillor Lamb mentioned. And if you could go to a site plan for my question. Do you have a more zoomed out one? Or that'll probably do if not. Okay, so I guess the requirement is to add landscaping along Field Road. So I just wanted to clarify what exactly that entails. Because, so would that be the entire length aside from driveways? Maybe could you just indicate with the mouse what you were thinking, or the planning department was thinking for along Field Road?
Sure. It's likely best if we look at the photograph. That would essentially, the proposal that the applicant originally had was to have a screening around the building itself, directly adjacent to the building. Essentially, instead of using the perimeter of the property, we would be using the perimeter of the building. And staff felt that it would likely be a better use of the landscaping effort to focus it between the building and the road. To improve, not necessarily directly beside the building, but essentially the view into the property from the road. So whether that would be a combination of berming with planting, rather than going directly adjacent to the building around the perimeter of the building, it would be in the area between the building and the road.
Okay, so not necessarily like a cedar hedge along the road, it'd be just varied landscaping within the property.
Yeah, and I think that's where the APC was getting at, that we don't necessarily need to use a homogeneous cedar hedge, that there could be, a broader variety of plantings to be used that would fill in over the next years to be able to block the view into the property.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Koberwitz, on page 84, it talks about servicing requirements. And it says a building sprinkler system would be required, but there's no SCRD water supply to the area. So what are the options, and when would something like that be coming up inside of the process that we're working on?
Yeah, so this is one of the things in the order of operations when we're considering variances, is that, of course, additional technical analysis needs to be done on the costing of bringing in a water pipe, for example, which is at the end of Field Road currently. There are some alternative options as far as wells and storage tanks that can facilitate sprinkler systems when you're not connected to water. But to invest and go in that direction, the applicants fairly early on need to have some certainty around the actual feasibility of the project as far as the variance goes. So this is the first step. But certainly there are options for sprinklering buildings that aren't connected to water supplies. And it's fairly common in ALR situations that are often unserviced. For example, reservoirs can be built, water tanks installed and that sort of thing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council?
Yeah.
Councillor Lamb?
When I was there today, anyways, I talked to them and they are going to put in a couple of cisterns that will probably be, I would imagine they'll have probably 10,000 gallons of water on site to, for their fire suppression system. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. To follow up on the cistern, there's a question which you may not be able to answer today, Mr. Kurbowitz, and that's okay. Any cisterns that go in for say fire suppression, are they required to be exclusively used for the sprinkler system, or can the applicant use it as part of the irrigation system for the property or for the building? The reason I ask is because it seems a waste to be installing 10,000 gallon storage tanks if they can only ever be hooked up to the sprinkler system and nothing else. So, but maybe more of an engineering question than a planning question.
I would likely be speculating on the exact requirements, but the minimum requirement for fire suppression would need to be met. There's no time window where a fire may or may not happen. That water needs to be available at all times. So my understanding would be that it would have to be exclusively for firefighting purposes.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb, your hand is still up. Did you have another question or comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So there's a recommendation on page 79. What would council like to do?
Oh,
Councillor Rowe?
I will move recommendation 2 that development variance permit 2021-05 as attached to this report be approved by council and issued once the following condition has been met: A, submission of a revised landscape plan to the satisfaction of the district, which incorporates a variety of suitable plant species and that provides an adequate buffer of the development as seen from Field Road and adjacent areas.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on, item 10.2.
Has his hand
Sorry,
up.
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, I was just wondering, can we make, just ask staff about looking into, some way of getting back to council when one of these one-offs comes up. I know there's a couple of other projects that are on the in the near future. I think that there will be a couple of other projects that come to us that are going to be on the very outskirts of Seashell that are not in, whatever you call it, a containment area that might be developed, and it would be, it'd be nice to give staff some direction as how we would like to move, to support them to move on them.
Okay. So what you're requesting is that we have staff bring that back for us to review?
Yes, something that gives them the tools to work with so they can simplify some of these proposals. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Yates.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are places within our bylaws where discretionary authority can be given to staff to make decisions like the ones that you're talking about that would seem like common sense, or something where we can meet in the middle with an applicant or something like that. So we are looking for all of those opportunities as we review the bylaws right now, and we'll come back to council with some of those options. And if bylaws need to be rewritten, we'll look at that as well.
Okay. So it sounds like this is one that we'd like you to look at while you're going through that. Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, when I want to see an application, I want to see it reviewed by staff before it comes to us. I think there's great value in that because they are the professionals. And then once they've done that, we can decide to create exemptions. And I want to note that we didn't create an exemption here. We went with the staff recommendation unanimously. So I think there's great value in having them look at it first and going through the proper process.
I don't think that's what Mr. Yates was saying. Mr. Yates was saying that if there are times when we could actually just delegate to staff, that it doesn't have to come to us. They still will do their work. But if there's situations where we can set up, say, if it fits these parameters, fits inside this box, we don't need to see it. You can just approve it and move it through. Right? I think that's what they're going back and looking at the various bylaws for. To save both, the staff time and the proponent's time. Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Yates? Or like
certain legislation allows for the delegation of authority in certain circumstances. It is limited, but a lot of those were stripped out of bylaws in seashell many years ago for whatever reason at the time. So we'll look to see if some of those are reasonable to put back in place and look for options. But having boundaries is reasonable.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Item 10.2. Thank you, Mr. Yates. This is a proposal for Hackett Park from Sunshine Coast Pickleball Association. So I'd like a motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And Mr. Anderson, over to you.
Thank you and good evening, Your Worship and Council. Before you is a report seeking direction from Council with regards to a proposal brought forward by the Sunshine Coast Pickleball Association. Firstly, I would like to thank the Pickleball Association for their proposal and acknowledge the work and thought that have gone into it. As you've read in the attached proposal, the Sunshine Coast Pickleball Association is seeking to convert one of the 2 tennis courts at Hackett Park into 4 dedicated pickleball courts. That would leave the remaining court dedicated solely for tennis. So I will say that at the time of drafting our 2018 Parks and Open Spaces Master Plan, pickleball did not provide any input as an organized league at that time because it was a fairly new sport, I imagine. I will say it has gained a lot of popularity over the years. And the increase in popularity of the sport has increased the pressure on the Hackett Park tennis court or the Hackett Park courts, as it was referenced in their proposal. This has led to frustration and wait time and increased wait times for the courts from both pickleball and tennis. So tonight, staff are seeking an approval to go forward with a public survey directing the public to provide feedback via the district website on proposed changes. If council endorses recommendations 1 and 2, staff will then return with the results of the survey and seek further direction at that time. I think we could probably get a survey up within the week and probably leave it up for a period of 4 to 6 weeks to gather feedback. I know there was a survey that was part of the 2021 Parks budget process in which 125 responses were there based, there was a question on court sports and there was some interesting numbers, but I would like to gather specific numbers at the courts themselves and not just people that kind of tuned into the budget process. The people that actually use the courts, I'd like them to have their say. So yeah, at this point, we're just seeking approval to go ahead with a public survey. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Not so much a question about doing the survey and the outreach. I think it's great. I think reaching out to both the Pickleball Association and the Tennis Club directly to invite their membership to do those surveys would be great, including asking, are you a member of one of these associations, so that we know, right, what perspectives coming to the table. I did have one question on page 107, which is the proposed court layout from the Pickleball Association. Their last bullet point talks about new wind screening, at least on that south side chain link fence, or if budget permits, along the entire outer fence. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts around the security implications of doing that in terms of creating a space that is open to the public, but that cannot be seen into, essentially, with the problems we have right now in our community.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I probably wouldn't be in support of anything that's like completely opaque. I'm not fully aware on what type of screening materials they have. I'm sure there's probably something that's, partially see-through anyway, but we're not at that point yet. I would definitely look at all the options, but I would agree with you. We don't want to enclose that space for sure.
Councillor McLean. And then I'll come to Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm in support of studying this, considering the idea. I think when we look at Seashell, there's really one outdoor court, and we're looking at it. So there's lots of options for indoor, but I think we need to figure out how to use this one best. But I guess my main question is, we're doing a lot of work in Hackett Park over the next couple of years. How much of that is really set in stone, and is there other opportunities for feedback on some of the other projects that may be happening? I'm wondering if we can do a larger consultation on the Hackett Park. Is there enough up in the air at this point?
Yeah, so there is a number of projects that are taking place at Hackett Park. We will be issuing an RFP for a new playground. And as you know, the amphitheater and the Hackett Park stage is going ahead. I think there is room for public engagement for sure when we're talking about the use of or potentially, playground ideas and stuff. I know that some communities have actually allowed kids to have their say, which is kind of a dangerous thing sometimes. But yeah, there's always an opportunity to have more public engagement for sure. And I think as we move along, we can definitely get communications involved with that.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, follow up?
Okay, so I'm seeing opportunity within the tennis court and the playground potentially. Was there anything about an adult fitness area? There's just so much going on there. I'm trying to keep track.
Yeah, the adult fitness area was mentioned as well. It was part of our application for the, I think it was the Healthy Communities Initiative grant. It was mentioned in the master plan. I guess there was another part of the master plan that was mentioned, which was to have a Hackett Park master plan. So yeah, we're moving ahead very fast without a huge overall master plan for the park. So it was something that was maybe overlooked at one point. So it might be something to look at as well. But we are moving along with some of these projects. But adult fitness equipment was one of those items that was included. And I think there's still another intake for the Healthy Communities Initiative grant. We didn't get the first part of that, which we were hoping to get for some improvements at Hackett Park. So I think Director Dillon's going to be putting in for their second intake, which might, bring us some more money for some of these initiatives at Hackett for sure.
Okay, Councillor Rowe.
I was actually just yelling at my dog. Sorry,
Oh.
I wasn't muted. But I was just gonna bring up what Matt just discussed. So I'm good, thanks.
All right, I have one question on page 105. So currently our budget includes $24,000 for resurfacing of the tennis courts. And there will be additional costs if, the community comes back and says, yes, we think this is a great idea. Do we have any idea what kind of dollar value we'd be looking at? A ballpark? We have to find that somewhere, right?
The 24,000 was initial quote just for a light resurfacing, new lines. I think that if we were to include new nets and all that, we could easily double that. This quote was from last year, and we all know prices have even gone up in the last 6 months for a lot of things, not just lumber, but apparently a lot of steel items and stuff have gone up in price. So I'm hoping that 24,000 is still going to stand to today for just the basic resurfacing, but yeah, we could be looking, 50 for sure. Who knows? I guess the sky's the limit as to what quality of fixtures they want in there. I think there's an opportunity for fundraising as well.
Well, they do mention in their letter that, if there is additional cost, they would be willing to go and ask their members. So that actually might be something you can include in your survey. That
Exactly.
if you're in favor of this, would you also be willing to contribute financially towards it?
Right.
You might get, yes, we want it, but no, we don't want to pay for it.
That's a very good
Or
point.
yes, we want it and we're willing to pay for it. Find out.
Sounds good.
All right, Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that Mr. Bentley is in the gallery right now as well. So hopefully he's heard the comments too about the fundraising efforts and checking with the membership and making sure that they know as soon as that survey goes up to let us know.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, just on the survey, what is our desired outcome for that? The basic question I see it being asked is, what do you want to use it for? Tennis or pickleball? So it's essentially just a count of how many tennis players and pickleball players we have, or how many are interested in filling out a survey. Is there something more nuanced that I may be missing?
No, I think it's getting to the root of it for sure, Councillor McLean. We, I guess the one part of this equation is once you take away the one tennis court, you're never going back to two tennis courts. So there is a real final kind of part about this for the future Hackett Park. So if it's deemed that, the tennis players out there are in numbers that don't match up to pickleball, or there's, fewer people that are happy with a single dedicated court, that might, really weigh into the survey. Having up to 4 potential pickleball courts may solve a lot of problems with, the pressure on the courts basically and wait time. So I guess that's where we're trying to go with this, is find out, maybe everyone will be happy with this. Maybe it won't just be a, us and them kind of survey. So it may be a win-win, but until we put it out there, I guess we don't really know.
That's very fair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so there are some recommendations on page 103. What would council like to do with those? Councillor Toth.
I will move recommendation 2, that staff be directed to consider the proposal for Hackett Park submitted to District of Seashell Council by the Sunshine Coast Pickleball Association on May 6, 2021, and bring a report back to a future council meeting. And recommendation 3, that staff be directed to gather feedback from the public on the proposed changes for the Hackett Park tennis courts as submitted by the Sunshine Coast Pickleball Association on May 6, 2021.
Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on, item 10.3. This is 4684 Sunshine Coast Highway, Lot 4, Block 1, no, sorry, Lot 4, Block 4, District Lot 1356, Plan 7006. And first, I need to ask if the owner of the property in question is in attendance. And if so, if they could put up their hand. And we would give you an opportunity to address council. I don't see the applicant's name there, and I don't see a hand up. Councillor Todd?
I was just going to move receipt of the report first.
Thank you. Okay. So move receipt and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. All right. Not seeing the applicant here or the property owner here, Mr. Nihas, I will turn it over to you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. Due to the condition of my internet, I will leave my camera off if that's all right with you.
That's fine.
There's a couple of things that I would like I would like to add to the report with regards to the letter of February 16th. It was hand delivered to the property, but there was nobody home to receive it, so it was left on the door at the property. And the letter from the corporate officer in telling of this council meeting to hear the recommendation for notice on title was returned to me today, unclaimed by the owner. The purpose of the notice of title is to inform any owners interested in this property of a contravention of the District of Seychelle's building bylaw, that something has occurred with the property, in this case, the construction of a deck without the required permits. And that, of course, upon the owner obtaining the required permits and passing inspection and completion of the building permit, the notice can be removed. Thank you.
So I guess this would be a question for the corporate officer. If the applicant or the property owner has not been served, then are we in a position to move forward with this now, or do we need to postpone this or defer this to a future meeting? Ms. Frank?
Your worship, as you mentioned, the property owner is entitled to a hearing before we proceed with the notice on title. So my recommendation would be, considering they have not claimed the registered letter, is that our staff, it's usually by law enforcement, but that we have somebody personally serve them and be able to confirm that the letter was handed to them, and then defer this to a future council meeting.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Toth and Councillor McLean.
Thank you. Looking at the top of page 109, the January 17th, there was an email from the owner stating that they were out of the country. I'm just wondering if they indicated to staff when they would return to the country. Perhaps they haven't returned yet, is my first question. And then the second question is, who's building the deck? Is it owner built, or is it being built by a contractor?
Through the mayor to Councillor Toth, the owner indicated that they were going to be back in the country through an email to the building official around Christmas time, that they would look after obtaining the permits very soon into the new year. And under the building bylaw, it is the sole responsibility of the property owner to obtain and obtain permits and comply with the provisions of the building bylaw.
Thank you. So now, though, we're in a position where the owner, we are not sure if the owner's been served, so does not necessarily know that this is moving forward. So I would probably look for a motion to defer this until the owner has actually been served, and then have staff bring it back. Someone like to move that? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on, item number 10.4. This is a request for noise bylaw 519/2012 variance for Seashell Airport runway improvements and extension. Motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Mr. Bandera.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a brief presentation for you tonight about the runway construction activities during the period of noise bylaw variance.
Do you have pictures?
Yes, there's drawings.
I've driven up there to drive by the fence. I can see the equipment working in there, but you can't really see what, you know, I know they're moving dirt around, but.
Okay, I think you can see the screen now.
Yes, we can. You might want to do a start the slideshow. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, the purpose of this report is seeking a council approval for the noise bylaw variance in order to complete the runway construction in timely manner with the minimum interruption of the airport operation. So this is the construction area and the design. As you can see, on this is the existing runway on this area, and this area is scheduled to work full depth milling, pulverizing, and grading and compaction of existing asphalt runway, taxiway, and apron. So we have do a little apron taxiway here, and the full taxiway on this side, and the apron on this area. So this will allow us to reuse the milling asphalt and saving significant amount of money to reuse this asphalt on that. And also after compaction of the milling materials over here, then we provide 50 milli overlay, not the overlay, 50 milli road base and grading and compaction. And by that time, we will finish this area next week to ready for the surfacing asphalt pavement over here. And during this period, we will complete runway line painting without lighting. So the lighting is the next one. We'll bring the council report and council presentation with our consultant with various options and the costing for that. So it will underway, and it probably next couple of weeks we'll bring that one. This is the expected schedule during this period. Above works is expected to complete by June 30th with the permitting, and the noise bylaw variance is requested until June 18th, just to ensure the time for unforeseen conditions. And the substantial completion is expected by July 1st as per our original schedule. Communication, we notify all the impacted businesses, institute, and the properties on Field Road near construction by hand delivered letter. And once approved this, and tomorrow we will send that to our contractor, and the contractor will print this and deliver hand delivered to the all property owners and ACRD and the VCI DO and other users. Airport users are already notified of upcoming runway closure, excluding rotary wing aircraft. That is the helicopters. Helicopters still can be used that area. They can rotary wing aircraft can be operated with a high elevation, and they can cross over where the other side on the south side for their private helipads. So it won't interrupt for the rotary wing aircraft. And also the airport manager will notify NOTAM, notice to airmen. That will be issued Saturday, May 29th. And this is a recommendation for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I'm looking at the map on page 114 of our agenda package. And I see that I assume that the red shaded area is the notification area. The text box has disappeared on me here, but I'm just confirming, are we really expecting noise impact that far south of the notification area, or is it just to let those last few houses along Field Road know that this is something that's coming up? And further to that, if we are expecting the noise to carry that far, I'm wondering if we should extend the notification area a little further south. Thank you.
Thank you, through the mayor and Councillor Halton. So the reason we put that one, because of the vehicles come in the morning, the asphalt come from Gibson's plant, and the more trucks going on that, and that's why we put on that area of this.
Councillor Todd, follow up?
Yeah, so then to follow up with that, so it's not that the milling is going to be noisy, it's that it's the vehicle traffic on Field Road through the overnight or very early morning. So I'm wondering if we should be notifying everybody who fronts onto Field Road, just that this is coming. which I suppose is more a question for council than for staff specifically. So it's up to us whether we want to expand the notification area after all.
That's right. Council? Councilor Rowe.
Well, I would say if the purpose of the notification is really related to the increased truck traffic, it would make sense to me to notify those close to Field Road.
Mhm. So that would be the length of Field Road down to the highway? And resident, I think we're talking about residents.
Resident, yeah.
Okay.
If the intention is not that, then that's different.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Lamb, did you have something to add? No? Okay. All right. So I think we'll look at, we'll probably want to put something in writing around that piece. Okay, Councillor Toth?
Just to check with council and our staff, if this would be appropriate to do a third recommendation, that staff increase the notification area to include residential properties fronting on Field Road.
Ms. Frank? Look for a seconder while she joins us.
Sorry, your worship, I'm going to keep more off.
Yes.
That would be appropriate if council so wishes to
Thank you.
area.
Okay, so that has been moved and seconded. Okay, so that would be added to the list on here. Maybe, well, okay, so because we haven't moved the first two first, Councillor Toth.
Yeah, then I will move recommendations 1 and 2 at the same time as my additional recommendation.
Thank you. All right, is there a seconder for all that? Seconded? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, I have one question before you leave us. You talked about lighting and how a report's going to be coming forward to council on lighting at a subsequent meeting. How does that lighting piece tie into this construction? Because the lighting goes down the middle of the runway. Are we preparing for lighting, or is there, or are we going to be ripping it up again and putting lighting in if we do that? What does this kind of look like?
The lightings are 1.5 meters on the south side, not in the middle of the runway.
Okay.
So it's outside the pavement area. It's not middle of the not the middle of the
Okay.
runway. Yeah.
Obviously I'm not a pilot. Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
but however, we ask, the staff ask from the consultant to consider additional pre-ducting 2 locations in the future use on the other side. So then we don't want to cut the asphalt. So we can, if we need any power usage on the other side, so we can use that empty conduit.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dillon.
I was gonna just clarify a bit, but I think the manager of municipal construction and infrastructure renewal did that. The ducting for this type of lighting is a relatively inexpensive aspect. So as part of the planning for the project, the ducting would be included in the scope of the project to allow for that in the future. So we would not have to go in and rip up runway. If the manager wants to add anything additional to that, I'd welcome his input, but that's my understanding of how these projects usually happen is we do a degree of planning and forethought ahead of what could come in the future.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. We look forward to that report on lighting.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas, did you have something to add? All right. Just when you show up, I think sometimes you want to add something to us for us. Okay. So we are moving on to item 10.5. Thank you, Mr. Bandera.
Thank you.
Item 10.5, RCMP new member request. Motion to receive the report. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is to seek endorsement from council on adding a new municipal RCMP member position for the District of Seashell. We have heard through the budget process that the number of calls to the RCMP and average time spent on calls has increased here at the district or within the district. And we have talked about increasing our municipal members from 11 to 12. We had initially put it in the budget this year, and after conversation with the RCMP and the time it would take for them to fill that position, the first quarter of 2022 would be adequate for us to budget for that position if we go forward. Since the end of the budget process, staff has contacted our contacts at the head office and to find out the finalization of the process, because there's a letter we send every year to the RCMP, and we have sent it this year again. And then to wrap up, or the final steps for a request would be a letter, the examples in the agenda, would be a letter endorsed by council that formally asks for the increase to the municipal member. So we've included it here in this agenda for council to discuss and endorse if that's where we want to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Todd.
Glad we're not using the wireless microphones tonight. Wear mine out. I am supportive of this. As noted, the last time the municipal increase happened was in 2009, and the last increase for provincial was 2011. So it stands to reason that the last increase to the Sunshine Coast Police Force was in 2011. I just wanted to highlight that later in our agenda, one of the items of correspondence is a piece from the town of View Royale asking for authority to be given to hospital security staff to take custody of people who are being brought in on mental health issues. We've heard from the RCMP that mental health takes up a lot of their time. And when they go to the hospital, they have to stay with that patient until they're released. So I think, we are a growing community. I 100% support the increase to our policing services. But if the province does something as indicated in the letter, I think that could have a big impact on our policing authority as well. So just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Councillor Kuster.
Just for clarification, so this would this go into for next budget year, or would it be?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So it would be in our next budget year, but it would be the fourth quarter of the RCMP's budget year.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this position a lot, but at the end of the day, I think I'm in support. I think the presentation that we received by the acting commander was really drove the nail home in that we need more support for mental health calls, and this position would be in the general service. It wouldn't be assigned to a shift, so they could provide that specialization within mental health. And I think the more specialization we have within our department, the better we can respond to these types of calls and serve our community. So I think this will be a good addition for the Sunshine Coast RCMP.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster, do you have another question or comment? All right, so there is a recommendation on page 116. What would you like to do?
I'll move recommendation 2.
Okay, accept the request to add a new municipal RCMP member for 2021-2022 for the district of Seashell be endorsed.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to council reports. And we'll start with Councillor Toth, McLean, Lamb, Rowe, Kuster. So Councillor Toth. over to
Yet
you.
again, I speak first.
Oh, you're in my top left corner on my screen. Want me to go bottom right? I could do that.
I can keep my report short. I don't have much to report in the last 2 weeks, other than I attended an event yesterday. The mayor was there as well, looking at climate change, sea level rise, storm surges, and the impacts to seashell. It was focused around seashell, although some of the discussion groups sort of broadened the scope to the Sunshine Coast as a whole. The discussion was wide ranging from retreating from certain areas to protecting areas, including our downtown, relocating infrastructure to ensure that it's hardened against future flooding, things that we can build, things that we can plant that help to mitigate storm surge and coastal flooding. We were split into 3 groups, and my group talked at great length about the canal proposal that was originally raised by former Mayor Bud Kosh, I think back in the 80s, and how infrastructure like that could not only help to defend against coastal flooding, but also create value in a redeveloped waterfront through our downtown. It's obviously pretty, it's a very long-term goal. Municipalities look at like 20 years as long-term goal. This is like a 80-year long-term goal. But the thing is that climate change is not going to just suddenly show up next week. It's going to be slow and incremental. So it's how do we look at that? We're going to reach a point where we're going to have to stop approving developments on the waterfront, or we're going to have to raise the height that flood construction has to be, things like that. So that was a really great session. CAO Yates was there along with CAO Dean McKinley from the regional district. So it was nice to see some senior staff there as well. And other than that, I got my COVID jab today. So looking forward to getting a little bit closer back to normal. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. Been emailing back and forth with the Ferry Advisory Committee. We're looking to get a meeting set up with BC Ferries. And the meeting is essentially going to ask the question, what's next after the failed trial? Where do we go from here? How do we continue to work together to improve service on Route 3? So trying to mend some of those bridges that may have been burnt by the pretty rough response and of the rollout of the trial. Earlier today, I met with the Sunshine Coast Housing Action Table Steering Committee. That group is moving forward. It's dealing with a lot of ambiguity. So they have a challenging path in front of them. But some key developments are moving through the SRD. And I believe the PCD meeting tomorrow morning is going to talk about the housing coordinator position. And the Housing Action Table Steering Committee has been involved in that conversation. So not really a whole lot to update at this stage. It's they're working on it, but they do plan to have the first official Housing Action Table meeting sometime in June.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
There we go. Yeah, so I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and one of the things, we talked a bit about housing, and they wanted to know if there was a way that to speed up the process for just approving projects. It comes back to staff. We talked quite a bit about workforce housing, rezoning lots to duplex and triplexes instead of single family or lane housing. or even larger, if there's, and then one of the things that always comes up with this, the STRs, is it?
Yep,
Anyways,
short-term rentals, yep.
Yeah, short-term rentals was, going back to the province, sending a letter to the province with regards to the Landlord Tenancy Acts, because that act is very one-sided, and it makes it hard for a person to rent a home, if you really read the Tenancy Act. Anyways, we talked about the People's Choice Awards, and they said like there's 100+ categories, so there's lots of opportunities for different businesses to participate. We talked about the BC Ferries trial, and just talked about how poorly it was rolled out. Just not enough good information given to the community, and yeah, just poor communication all the way around. So just looking forward to how we move forward. And then one of the things they asked in the end, what would council look at, if we approached a cruise ship company about bringing cruise ship into Seashell Inlet and set up workforce housing? Just ideas, and then, I missed the Scredo meeting. My own stupidity. I just doing too many things, I guess, that day, and I missed it. And I enjoy the Scredo meetings. They're usually pretty good. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I don't have much to report. We had a steering committee for the poverty reduction plan yesterday afternoon, and just talking about getting it wrapped up and producing a final report by the end of next month. And other than that, just work.
Thank you. You're doing a good job. Councillor Kuster.
I have nothing to report this week.
Thank you. All right. So I'll add a few things on. I had an opportunity. So I don't think I mentioned this. I went and got my vaccination a couple of weeks ago. Happened to sit down beside a social studies teacher from Chattelich High School when I was, doing my waiting period kind of thing. I ended up going and speaking with the grade 11 social studies class. I came in and they had a list of questions for me, everything from, what does my day look like? All kinds of different things. They had questions, some personal kinds of things. How did I get into this? How would you encourage, girls to kind of follow a path to get into it, to what's happening with the water situation? So all kinds of wide ranging questions. We didn't get through all of them. They had 3 or 4 pages of questions. But that was a lot of fun. And I think I'm going to get invited back. So it'll be great. Capilano University has an advisory committee. We had a meeting. It is the Chair Pratt, Mayor Beamish, and I, and a few other people in the community. And what it is we have these about every 3 or 4 months. We get together and we talk about, okay, what are the needs that we in government see or hear from the community about jobs, for example, that are in the community that need to be filled, but that maybe we don't have trained people for. And one that they're looking at is the home care aid. Right? There's a home care aid program that they put in place to provide enough home care workers here on the Sunshine Coast. Given the shortage in housing, they look at it and they say, if we can provide the training to people who are already living here, we don't have to worry about the housing and we can fill these positions. So they're also looking at the ECE program. That's for the Early Childhood Education Program. They're hoping to do a course in the fall. They haven't heard about whether or not there is funding, but we are going to look and see if we can find a way to make the funding happen and get information out to the community that these positions need to be filled and there is training for it. So there's some work to be done around that to bring that together, but we're hoping to be able to address the dire need here for staff, given that the school district is going to be opening a childcare facility, both at Seashell Elementary downtown and at West Seashell Elementary. We'll need staff for those positions. The CIA District of Seashell Nation project is moving forward. You can expect that beginning of June, there will be an updated report coming around the projects that have come forward and been proposed. Over the next 2 weeks, we're looking at getting some more input from the Seashell Nation members in particular to find out, are there projects that they don't like, or they do like, or they'd like to have some change or put them off in the future. They have done a lot of consultation in our community. So we'll be seeing what comes forward there. I will be talking about that in a second. I attended a short presentation put on by Sunshine Coast Tourism, and it was the business of a sustainable Sunshine Coast. So they set up a subcommittee to look at sustainable tourism. The two items that they're looking at this year are bike tourism and water conservation. So they're doing a lot of work around how do you implement those in the community. They're going to be reaching out to all of the restaurants, for example, giving some ideas, some examples, and encouraging them to get on board with regards to water conservation, given that that is a concern on the Sunshine Coast. Bike tourism, Track did an amazing presentation. I've requested the presentation, and I'm going to actually provide it to council and forward it to staff, because it talks about the infrastructure that's required for bike tourism. If we've got electric bikes, people coming through, do we have bike chargers for them in a place where they can actually securely have their bikes and they don't go walking off on them when they're stopping to eat, right? So different kinds of information that I think will be very advantageous for us. Nobody mentioned the intergovernmental meeting. So we all, most of us attended the intergovernmental meeting with it was hosted by the School District 46. It had District of Seashell Nation, the SCRD, Islands Trust were all at the meeting. So it was a very good meeting. They kept us on a timeline and gave us some questions we had to ask, had breakout rooms. I think they did a fabulous job. What else? Every Friday, I'm still attending the VCH Coastal COVID-19 update. So we did hear last week, Friday, that while the country had approved the Pfizer vaccine for ages 12 and up, BC hadn't yet put it into their plan because they needed to look at how the rollout was going to happen. We're starting to get more information on that. Should have more information coming in the next few days. And we're going to keep Councillor Rowe busy in her new job. What else have I got here? Downtown Business Association board meeting this morning. The chamber actually had a liaison appear at the meeting, and they're going to be having liaisons appear at each other's meetings going forward. So that's a good sign to see. Upcoming. Chudlich and the Alternative High School have their virtual grad taping tomorrow evening. So I've been asked to come and give a short address, and it will be short. It'll only be like a minute or two. That will be videotaped and be put in as part of their grad ceremony. On the 26th, which is next week, Wednesday, is a Let's Talk Water session. Councillor Toth, is it at 6:30? 6 o'clock, 6:30? I don't remember.
7 o'clock. I was going to speak to it in my SCRD
Okay,
report
perfect.
because the links are in my SCRD report.
Perfect. Okay. So it's on water meters though, right? So you can mention it again, because we need to mention things 3 times sometimes before people actually get them. So Let's Talk Water next week, Wednesday, on water meters. And then finally, next week, Friday, is a full day of AVICC, Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities. This is the association that we belong to as a municipality in our region. So it'll be a one-day AGM there that a number of us are attending. So that's my report. Councillor Toth, SCRD.
Thank you. My report is attached to the agenda. There's a couple things I wanted to highlight in here. Right in the middle of page 120 in our agenda package, we did receive a staff report about drywall costs to remediate the contamination of the illegally dumped drywall containing asbestos. The SCRD spent $126,000 so far in 2021. This year, less than half a year, dealing with remediating contaminated drywall bins. The drywall currently is hauled to New West Gypsum for recycling, where they manufacture new drywall out of it. Unfortunately, there is no ability for a homeowner on the Sunshine Coast to take asbestos contaminated anything to the landfill. We can't bury it here. We're not allowed to export it. Your only options are dealing with a remediation company. There are places in the Lower Mainland where you can take it, but you have to be a resident of the Lower Mainland in order to take it to one of those facilities. So we've passed a motion to look at some advocacy around that, and maybe that's not going to get fixed until we get a new landfill. Maybe we can, or waste export, whatever option we go with. Maybe we can look at something in the interim. Maybe we can get our operating certificate amended so that we can export the asbestos contaminated drywall directly to the only dumping site, which is in Alberta. But in the meantime, we had to increase the drywall tipping fee to $1,000 a ton from 290 or 390. So anyways, it has gone up significantly due to illegal dumping. And I want to emphasize that. It's not anything to do with the program, the transport, it's the illegal dumping. The next thing on my list there on my report, the tipping fees regarding appliances. Staff are going to be coming back with a change to that. But the same day that we had this meeting, it was announced that the Gibson's Recycling Depot now accepts large appliances and hot water tanks for free. So really, there's no reason to take these things to the dump anymore. And our staff are looking at getting the SCRD joined into that program. But even if we are added to the program, it probably won't be until the fall. So I will update everybody when that happens. And then the other thing, as the mayor mentioned, Let's Talk Water, May 26th at 7 p.m. It's entirely about the water metering program. And I've got links to both the YouTube stream and the Zoom meeting for anybody who wants to participate in my report. You can just click on them and go from there. I think that's it. Happy to take any questions.
I'm just going to mention a couple other comments about the drywall. When we have residents who come to the landfill with their report on their drywall, and the drywall, it says that the drywall is good, it doesn't have asbestos, and it can be recycled, right? Made into new drywall. But they include, which is what happens, they include some drywall that does have asbestos in it. It goes down to the Lower Mainland, to the facility. They do testing on it down there. If they happen to find any asbestos in there, the whole bin is, they will not take the whole bin, and the SCRD has to remediate that. It costs $25,000 to $30,000 per bin for remediation. So what we are looking at doing with this increased cost is doing more testing on our end to ensure that we don't actually get dropped by the business down in New West. They've already given warnings to say, if we have bins that come in that are contaminated, we could potentially not be able to take drywall to them. So the options that we were given at the regional district, we didn't like any of them. This was the best option that we felt could actually serve the needs of our community. And we know there's more work to be done with regards to the province. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. I want to go to the graph on page 123. I'll highlight something and then just pass a question off to the directors. If we look at the two graphs, the big difference is we don't need to consider Gray Creek until 2032 versus doing it in 2024. We know new water is going to cost money. I don't know if this project has an expected cost, but it's going to be in the millions. And so to shift that 10 years down the road is really going to lessen the tax burden. It's huge. But my question is, why does the Chapman water supply drop in 2023 on the second graph when the water meter scenario?
Sorry, so you're talking about which page? Sorry,
123.
123.
The agenda package.
Okay.
That's a great question, Councillor McLean. These two tables are actually a couple of months old. I did share them previously in well, maybe a month old. I did share them previously in an SCRD report. And I did ask that question of GM Rosenboom. I just can't remember the answer to it right now. Perhaps Mayor Seegers remembers. Otherwise, I'm happy to look it up and get back to you.
Can you ask the question again?
Page
Yep,
123.
Okay.
The Chapman water supply drops off when water meters are implemented. Why is that? Shouldn't it remain constant?
The existing water that we have, you mean?
Yeah, the light blue line essentially.
Okay.
It goes down.
Okay, so what they're looking at doing when they implement Langdale and Church Road, they don't need as much treatment. And the treatment will be actually on site and they'll be feeding into the system. So when we start drawing from them, we don't need to take as much from Chapman. So it's available. We don't need to treat as much.
Okay, and I guess that's why it gradually goes back up by 2031.
That's right.
One other thing I wanted to highlight on page 122, the previous slide, is that even with the identified projects, we're still going to need to look at another source by 2028. You can see there is a wedge developing there of unfulfilled demand.
Mm-hmm.
$2.5 million for Gray Creek, by the way.
All right, any other questions? All right, let's move on to council correspondence. First, motion to receive the correspondence. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Councillor Toth, you had referred to the first one, the View Royal.
Yes, I had, and I think that we should send a letter of support for this initiative, specifically highlighting the lack of cross-coverage capability in remote and isolated communities. If half a dozen Burnaby RCMP get stuck in hospital for 6 hours, there's other coverage from surrounding communities. We don't have that option here. So happy to make that as a recommendation or resolution.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that we send a letter of support? I think you're looking for. Thank you. All right. All those in favor? Thank you. Then logging of high risk old growth forests. This was also, all of these are also being sent to the community forest. We want to make sure that they have all this information as well to help inform the management plan that they're putting in place. Number 3, District of Mackenzie support for 3-digit suicide prevention hotline. Councillor Toth.
I support this initiative. My understanding is this is something that's already in the works. So while I think it's a great idea, I don't know that there's anything we need to do on this other than raise awareness for it once it is available.
Okay, so nothing at this point. Then the final item on here, and then I have one item that I'd like to bring forward. I was going to bring forward through my report and I forgot, but I've got it in front of me here. The last item on the correspondence is from our Sunshine Coast RCMP with regards to community policing priorities. And there are some recommendations in the letter. What would council like to do? The three that they've made are on page 133. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm in support of the general approach that they're taking. Within number 2, the coordinated community response to mental health and homelessness, I see the RCMP taking a focus on mental health, but what I'd really like to see that translate into is more training. So I talked earlier about adding a specific officer, but just general more training within the mental health file, just to make sure that our RCMP are well equipped for the variety of the calls they can get on that front. So that doesn't quite get reflected in coordinated community response.
Okay. Okay, so what we can do is I'll work with the staff sergeant, or well, the acting detachment commander, I guess his title is right now. I'll work with him. We'll come up with some wording that they're okay with and that we can bring back here. Part of what they want to ensure is that anything that we put forward to them, they can actually measure, right? So they need to look at what they are gathering information on, or how they can gather information on, to be able to come back to us and say, well, yes, we did this, or no, we didn't do this, right? So we need to do that in conjunction. So I've made a note of that. I'll take that away and have a conversation with them. Are there any other pieces you'd like us to address inside of that? Councillor Toth.
You actually raise an interesting point with regards to measuring, or being able to measure the success and looking at the 3 priorities that they've identified. I'd be curious to know more information about how they intend to measure the success of those 3 priorities. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. I'll take that away and work with that. Then I have one final thing. I gave council a heads up. I've also given our recording secretary a heads up. And I think Councillor Toth, you wanted to recuse yourself for this.
I am going to recuse myself from this as the particular program you're going to be mentioning. I have a business that's eligible and would directly benefit from it. So.
All right, we will put you into the waiting room. Thank you. One of our local businesses, El Segundo, started their business, and we're just going to open up when the COVID shutdown happened back in March of last year. They had to rejig what they were doing moving forward. They started up their business and have been continuing to operate. The issue that they run into, and a few other local businesses and other businesses across the country, is that because they didn't have revenues in 2019, they did not qualify for any of the federal grant money that was available for businesses, because the criteria was they had to have seen a reduction in revenue over the previous year. They weren't operating in the previous year. So Scarlett Osborne, one of the owners of that business, has been working tirelessly in the background along with our MP to come up with some way that they could see to be able to provide federal funding to these newer businesses that started up during COVID and are going concerns, right? Continuing to want to operate, or those who just expanded at around that time, because again, they didn't have revenue numbers from the previous year to support the loss of revenue from the expansion. She's been going back and forth with the MP, as I said, and a fellow by the name of Sean Fraser, who is a parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Finance. And recently has come up with a proposal that is being seen favorably by the federal government. The reason that I'm bringing it tonight is right now in Ottawa, the budget has been presented, has not yet been approved. And right now in these next few weeks is when all of these programs are being finalized. So what this group that's called, hang on, what's it called? Save Startups. SaveStartups.ca is the group. It's getting support across the country. Victoria, City of Victoria actually approached this group to say, we want to send you a letter of endorsement and write letters on your behalf because of the impact they're seeing in their city as well. So it was requested that we as a council may want to consider endorsing this campaign, and that we also write letters to the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Revenue, Minister of Economic Development and Official Languages, and the Minister of Financing, advocating for support for businesses that have fallen through the cracks of government support programs. And it would include adjusting eligibility for these programs to include both new and newly expanded businesses that can demonstrate that their project was non-reversible at the outset of the pandemic. So it's not new businesses that are saying, well, we might have done this. It's businesses that had committed and were moving forward. Number 2 was implementing an alternate method for determining CEWS and CERS rates for these businesses. Basically, how do we look at their revenues and their expenses? And then back pay to March 15th, 2020, both for CEWS and CERS to these businesses based on the alternative ratio information. So I did put forward, I provided it to all of council. I provided it to our recording secretary. I'd like to move this motion forward and move this forward very quickly to Ottawa. And I'd look for a seconder from council. Seconded. Any questions or comments? All right, I would like to commend Scarlett Osborne for just being tireless in, continuing to see how she can make something happen here. So all those in favor? Thank you. All right, can we bring Councillor Toth back in? Thank you, Councillor Toth. Are there any emergency items to bring forward?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all in favor?